Okay, so I'm going to start here by looking at the requirements for the Excel section of your phase 2, which I'm going to name part 2. And I'm going to look at firstly the requirements in the assessment rubric for the spreadsheet. So the first 4 marks you have here is that you have separate worksheets for the results, a well-designed layout, well-formatted, appropriate, consistent formatting, and easy to read and interpret. So let's first focus on getting those 4 marks. So I'm going to switch over now to the Excel spreadsheet. Yours hopefully is a little bit fuller, more complete. And I just quickly, sorry, just ignore that part now. So what I want to start with here is if you put in automatic numbering here on the spreadsheet that you've chosen, if you're using one of mine, or whether you're using one of mine or yours, just go and put your automatic numbering in so that you can see how many entries you have here. You have to have 25. If you do not have 25 entries, please just insert rows for yourself there at the top and fill in those extra 5 or 6 names, surnames, and other details, obviously all the other details that you have for all your other respondents, that you have 25 questionnaire entries. Okay, when you are done with that, I would like for you to copy this worksheet. So yours might still be named sheet 1. So whether it's sheet 1 or data now, just create a copy and say, okay. And then if you are still on sheet 1 there, you can rename that to data. And I'm going to rename this copy to, oops, let me just try again there. I'm going to rename this copy to calculations. And then you see I have 2 extra worksheets here, which I've named graphs and research. So please just fill in those 2. Okay. Or add those 2 at least. Now with the data sheet, when you're done putting in your extra entries there, you leave this one exactly as it is, because we are going to use this one for the mail merge, which I will make a separate video for, and also to import our data to Access. So this needs to stay as is. Make sure that your first row is your headings. That's quite important for both the mail merge and the Access, that the first row is the headings that you are working with. Okay, now you can switch over to the calculations field. Or worksheet at least. And here you can now start doing things like, you remember on the assessment rubric, it said headings and borders. So emphasize your headings, put a bold on it, make the font bigger maybe, put a background color on it, and then also activate a few of your borders here. Just spend a few minutes to make it look pretty. Not too much though, because it's not for a hell of a lot of marks, just so that you know you get this mark for well-designed layout. Okay. Then the next mark that you get there is for consistent formatting. And for that one, you can use freeze panes. So you basically just select your the row beneath your heading, and you go to view and you select freeze panes, and then that should allow you to scroll through and keep your headings. Okay, so now you've got that mark. And to be extra safe, whichever column you have that have maybe numbers would be easiest to do a conditional formatting on. So maybe pick one of your number columns where the respondent had to answer with a number. Go back to your home tab, conditional formatting, highlight cell rules. You can play around with this and pick a more difficult one if you want to do the icon sets or the color scales or whatever you want. It's a quick mark though, so don't spend too much time on this as well, especially if you are a little bit more pushed for time. And yeah, maybe I will say I want to highlight the cell rules with a value less than 4, and I want it with a custom format, and maybe just pick for yourself something a little bit more original there than the red. So I would like to make mine purple, for example, and bold. And okay. And okay. And there we should have now. I hope you can see that. Mine, the ones under 4 are in red or in purple at least, and whatever. So now you've got this mark for the well-designed layout. And the next thing we need there, what was the next mark? Let me just go check again. Assessment rubric. Okay, so we've got the conditional formatting, and now because we've done these two things, it should be easy to read and interpret. Okay, so let's go to the next part here. Data suitable to a spreadsheet was collected and is captured. That shouldn't be a problem. That should be fine. Analysis includes relevant, appropriate data other than responses from the respondents to the questionnaire survey. I'm going to get back to that one now. And then these 2 marks, excuse me, these 2 marks will depend on your functions that you've put in, which is the next part that we will get to after I've spoken about this data other than responses. Okay, so get back to your Excel spreadsheet now. Okay, so this little worksheet that I've inserted that is called research. That's for that mark. Okay, so either you can browse the internet and find a relevant, appropriate statistic, whether it's in a graph or a paragraph or whatever. The easiest one I feel is you can Google that you are looking for a graph. So you Google literally like graph statistics, how many people in South Africa have internet at home, or smartphones in South Africa, or something like that. So just basically a little bit of information that you did not find out from the questionnaire, which you can now take a screenshot of and paste here in your research Excel spreadsheet, worksheet, whatever. And then just remember to include a sentence. So you can even take a couple of cells here, merge and center, and then just give a sentence of basically what you see in your graph. So if you found a graph that shows how many people have internet only on their cell phones and how many people have internet at home in South Africa, then you will type according to the, maybe just put in the name of the website where you found it or something like that. I'm just going to do that there. 50% of people in South Africa, wada. Okay. So you basically type out a sentence explaining in words what you see in the graph. Okay. So that's a quick one. You Google it, do a screenshot, paste it here, and type out a sentence explaining what the finding is, what the fact is that you found. Okay. So that's for that mark. Now we are going to get back to our calculations. Okay, let's go back to our assessment rubric again. And here you are going to want to really pay attention to what is done here. Okay, so I'm going to skip the graphs section because we are going to do the graphs after we do the calculations. Okay. Now you can see here that they've actually helped you a lot in terms of you need one meaningful. Please focus on the word meaningful here. It has to make sense. We have to learn something from this, okay? One meaningful calculation from level 1, one meaningful calculation from level 2, one meaningful calculation from level 3, and then from level 4. And then you will see here at the top where they give you the descriptions, they give you examples and an explanation of what each of the functions are. So level 1, for example, is a simple function that only uses or includes a single cell range. And then they give you examples: sum, max, min, count, average, mode, wada. You pick one and you do it. Okay. As I said, please, this isn't something I can really help you with or show you with directly, because you have to look at the data that you have on your spreadsheet and ask yourself, with the calculation that you have in mind, what am I learning from this? trying to add up the ages together. So I say this person was 18, the next person was 16, 18 plus 16 plus what. That doesn't tell me anything. That's not meaningful. But if I count how many people said, yes, they have smartphones, that's more meaningful. I'm learning something. Like out of 25 people, 20 of them have smartphones. And it's something that we can take into consideration when we think of teaching, education, technology, all these kinds of things. Okay. So yeah, I am, like I said, I unfortunately can't do an example of each and every level, each and every calculation, whatever. So you are now going to have to look at your data and decide what meaningful calculations or functions you can use to find out information. If you have, for example, the amount of data that kids use in gigabytes, get an average for that maybe. If you have a question where they said which online portal they prefer using for education, then count if WhatsApp, count if Google Classrooms, count if user count if there. If you have any trouble with any of these functions or calculations on how to do it, I would suggest that you Google that. Also use YouTube to just give you a breakdown on how to insert and use the functions. And then in terms of being meaningful, test it in terms of asking yourself the question, like, what are you learning from this? Like, is it telling you something about using technology in education? If it's yes, hopefully it's right. Otherwise, also ask me or your teacher, if I am not your teacher, if they would say that the calculations that you have put in are meaningful. Okay. So then you are now, just make sure that you give each calculation or function a nice heading here. So you have, for example, sorry, I keep doing that. Average amount of data. Try again here. Data used. Then you have next to that neatly. Let's just give some more space so that that fits in nicely and we can see the whole heading. And then next to that, you will have your average, which you've now done on the data, for example. So make sure you give each of your functions a heading here, and you can also just maybe work on this to make it look a little bit more professional, like have a nice little table there at the bottom, and you have your answers here and your headings here so that it's clear what calculations you have done. Just check with level 4, look at the examples they give you there, and please, again, as I said, use YouTube or Google and to find assistance there on doing the different levels of calculations. Okay. Then the next thing, you are now going to do the graphs. Okay. Quick, 2 easy graphs. Please don't break your brain over this or spend too much time on it. So let's say, for example, this is internet at home question. What did I do now? Let's try again. Internet at home. Okay, so there's your heading, and now it's making it a hyperlink. Sorry. Let me just cancel that. Okay, so now I'm going to just unhyperlink this. Remove hyperlink, that's it. And I'm going to select basically this whole column, all my data together with my heading. And I'm going to say insert. And for me personally, I feel like I will just use a recommended chart. And now this doesn't work because I've got empty rows. Let me just try again quickly. Okay, let's try again. If we do it now, select all your data, then recommended charts. Why does it work? You selected to choose a chart. Okay, let's see. Oh, goodness. Okay, this worked earlier today. Let's try the other way then. Okay, so you can try it. As I said, I don't understand this worked earlier today when I did it. So sorry about that. But you can also use your information here at the bottom. So let's say, for example, with your calculation, you got to an average of data used to 5. Let's make the next one. We did a count if for internet at home, yes, for example, and I did a count if there, and let's say, for example, I got to 15 people who have internet at home, and then I got to internet at home, no, I would be left with 10. So I can select my data from here, and then again go to insert and charts. Hopefully this time it'll work. Well, it's because I have merged fields, and it's maybe a good thing that this worked out for me this way, because then you can also see for yourself, you need to put this data in columns or cells that are directly next to each other. Otherwise, unmerge. Otherwise, Excel picks it up as empty entries, and it makes space for those things on your worksheet, on your graph. So just check. I'm unmerging here. Okay, and I'm just going to widen this cell and put in my entries there. And do my graph up there. Please put this information in the same sheet now as your graph, so that that just looks a little bit neater. Come on. There we go. Okay, so this is what we're looking for. So then I can now cut this and paste it to my graphs sheet. As I said, maybe just bring the data with it that you used for the graph, so that it doesn't hang there in the air next to your other things. Give it a nice name. Number of people, no, let's say internet home, and you can maybe just have a yes and no here at the bottom, or whatever you prefer. So you have to have 2 graphs where you are basically comparing things and showing statistics. Again, these graphs have to be meaningful. Okay. Sorry for the little bit of disorganization there in the middle. Please let me know if you need any more help with the graphs, since it was didn't work out so well when I showed you there. But please also, if you do have those things where you have like a for or against, a column in which a person either said for or against, or you have a column in which people said yes and no to something, that really should work. If you select from the heading down to the bottom last entry that you have, and you have a response to every person, and you go to insert graphs, that should give you a graph. Like I said, I did it earlier today and it worked. So just try that. Okay, so you can see here in your assessment rubric for the graphs, at least one relevant, meaningful graph present that will contribute to the solution. So you see how important it is that it makes sense, that we learn something from it, as with the calculations too. A second relevant, meaningful graph that will contribute to the solution, appropriate types of graphs and options used. Please rather stick to a bar graph if you're not sure, or use the recommended graphs when you select your data, because for a pie chart, for example, and some of those other charts, you can't just use any data to present it in any type of chart. And it's easier to stick to the recommended charts if possible, if they do give you the options there. And then graphs are easy to read and interpret. Make sure all your graphs have headings and axis titles and those type of things, so that you get those marks. Okay, please, it's 4 easy marks. Make sure you get them. Just also, if you've done your calculations now, then these 2 last marks that I told you, you can only get afterwards. Make sure that you don't have any error messages and that all the functions are done correctly, then you will get those 2 marks. Okay. And that's Excel. That's your whole Excel section. So just to quickly get back to the Excel spreadsheet here. Now you've got your data, which you are going to use for your mail merge and to export to your Excel Access. You have your calculations here, your level 1, level 2, level 3, level 4 calculations. You have 2 relevant, meaningful graphs here, and you have your research where you pasted your chart or any other information that is extra and relevant to your research. Make sure it has something to do with education and technology. And then you are done with your Excel section. Please let me know if you need any help. I went over this a little bit faster than I usually do, so please don't hesitate to ask for help. Good luck.